norms and stereotypes to making sure that the butts are wet. Boy, girl, mom and dad want grown-up time, you're going mad. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bow.
Woo!
That was super loud to open the podcast.
Episode 6.
Hi, boy, girl, mom, and dad.
You're
Episode
Nick.
6. I'm Nick. You're
Oh, I just said who you are. Who am I?
Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren.
That's what I said. Mm-hmm. Lauren. There's a specific thing Lauren likes to do with the spelling of her name.
No,
compared
it's
to other
not just
Laurens,
me. It's other Lauren. No.
As if we're trying to like mess with the pronunciation.
No, I actually had a conversation the other
Lauren.
week, and they're like, yeah, people mispronounce my name all the time. And they're like,
I'm messing with you. Name
yeah,
pronunciation is important. I'm not.
Lauren.
I get it. Lauren.
Lauren, not
draw it out.
Lauren. It's not spelled like Lauren.
I understand.
Anyway, episode 6 on
Episode 6.
boundaries. We're talking boundaries today.
Mm-hmm.
I did a little poll over on Instagram at boygirlmom. spelled out dot.com, and y'all picked this one to be next. So here we are.
Let's go. We're controlled by the masses, or the 4 people who are listening. How many are there?
Oh, that's sad.
I wasn't trying to insult us. That was supposed to be a funny
more than 4.
joke. 5.
Oh, cool. So we just got back from a little road trip to
Beep beep, as
San
Cypress would say.
Olive would say too, to San Francisco,
Yeah.
and it was really fun. But it was definitely our first road trip with full-blown toddlers, which
Yeah.
was just different. And we're learning, so we're already, curating toddler trip content for you guys.
In our heads.
In our heads.
Yeah, it was a lot. Are you surprised I'm not wearing my Sail GP hat? Since I
am.
have been since
The
we
whole
got
reason we went on the trip that kind of like shaped it as Nick wanted to watch the Sail Grand Prix race, which was actually really beautiful and fun right there on the bay.
So fun.
Yeah.
So fun. Watch out, I might buy a sailboat.
Okay. Noted. We can chat about that in our budget meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, it won't fit in that meeting. It's better if I just buy it.
Okay, so are you all right? Mm-hmm. Are you ready for our TIFF for today?
As ready as I am every week.
Okay, so flossing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you floss before you brush your teeth or after you brush your teeth?
I think we have to redefine TIFF here, because this is not a fight. This is just a difference
No, it's
of
not
opinion.
supposed to be a fight. It's supposed to be kind of fun. We
Okay.
just, one's right, one's wrong. So
Right.
So I floss before I brush,
Mm-hmm.
and because I find it like gross if you floss after. Like I don't want to get too descriptive on here because that's like gross. This is a friendly, clean podcast. But when you floss afterwards, stuff often comes out, and so then you're stuck with that taste of the stuff in your mouth. So like it makes sense, I think, to brush afterwards. Also, I ask our dentist, even though the dentist they do floss like last. I asked, I was like, well, what do you do at home and how would you recommend? And they said to floss before you brush. So that's kind of where I sit on that.
I feel like you haven't given me any room to respond here. You've laid out a medical case. You've brought in doctor testimony. You've defined what is right already before I've responded. So I don't know what to say now.
Well,
Every single teeth brushing video you've seen in your entire life shows you brushing first, and they show the plaque, and they show that brushing gets most of it, and then they show the flossing, and the flossing gets the rest.
I don't know that
That's the way to do it.
I don't know that I've watched a bunch of videos to brush my teeth.
You've never seen a teeth brushing video.
I don't think, is that how you learned?
That's part of how I learned, yeah.
What video? Like that was on VHS?
Every toothpaste commercial has the same, like...
toothpaste commercial, got it.
Yeah.
It
I'm
sounded like
I'm
you were
not
just
like looking
watching
up how to
toothbrush
brush my teeth on YouTube. This is like, yeah. I realize you have a dentist who told you the way they do it at home. But I don't know. That doesn't mean 9 out of 10 dentists recommend, flossing before you brush your teeth. So
Either way,
I think the point is we both do it, and that's
yeah, that's what
great.
I was gonna say. It's great that we both floss. Flossing's important.
Crisp high five. Messing with our audio editors.
Yeah.
They're gonna hate it.
Okay, so the reason why I made that the tip this week is because I wanted to actually bring up something else that occurred between us that kind of ties into today's boundary episode.
Is this a me bus situation?
No. I really don't care what happened, but you used my toothpaste, which is totally fine.
Yes, I did use our toothpaste. That is what happened, yes.
No, we have our own tubes, and you used mine. We have different brands that we are using currently and that we both like. And he used it, which was fine, but I know he used it because he rolled my tube up
Yes.
And I keep it flat.
Yes.
And I thought that you crossed a boundary. Because I don't care if you use my
hilarious.
toothpaste, but you did do something to it that you would like to do to yours, but it wasn't your tube.
This does feed into today. So when you expressed to me very kindly, hey, I don't like it when my tube is rolled that way, has it happened since?
No, it was very...
I know you're not here to accuse me. I'm just saying this is a good example we're setting here. You know, you communicated a boundary very kindly and sweetly. And while I thought it was hilarious and ridiculous, I said, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a bad conversation.
And I've used the toothpaste since then, but I haven't rolled it the way you don't like.
Well, I never unrolled it, so it's still rolled how you like it. But I just, it was a good it was a good conversation. I'm just saying, like, it just tied into today.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah. So anyway, you can let us know if you like your toothpaste tube rolled and or if you floss before or
What
after.
she means by rolled, by the way, is like from the bottom, like the little lip, completely flattening and rolling all the way to the top. No, rolled can be many different things.
No.
Rolled can be many different things. Just let me be specific, you know?
Okay.
Some people's brains work my way.
Okay. My favorite toothpaste right now is the David's Natural toothpaste, and that's the one. He clearly likes it as well, but it does come with one of those metal pieces that like makes it easy to roll.
Yeah, those things are amazing, and they're great for people like me. Are you sad that I stole it?
No. I feel like I gave it to you.
Okay. Either way, are you sad that I have it?
No.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So on to boundaries, we wanted to have this conversation. Because like boundaries are such like a thing that is being talked about right now, which is great. It's just like important to have them in general. And I think that we've come from decades and such where they really haven't been in place or we don't know how to implement them. And it hasn't necessarily gotten easier, but it's better that it's being discussed. And so we're going to try to talk about like all different kinds of boundaries today, whether it's the ones you have for your kids, the ones you set for your family. Sometimes they overlap, you know, implementing boundaries with other people. Yeah, we're just going to get into all the nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. So I thought that we start today with just boundaries in our family. And like the very first boundaries that we started whenever we had the twins when they were coming to the picture is just boundaries for people coming over and seeing them. We didn't know when they would be born. Twins are often born early, and so we didn't know if they'd have NICU time. And if they did, you know, that's like especially crucial to have certain boundaries about like what people do and don't do. And so I created I haven't seen this anywhere else, but I'm sure there's something out there exists, but this is what I created. I just called it the 5 S's. So it was just easy. And we communicated that, and it was to everybody. So it wasn't like anybody got special treatment on that. The 5 S's so that they could remember what it was. The first one, not getting controversial here, but just it stands for shots. We required people to have the Tdap vaccine. You just had to have it in the last 10 years. And then if you got it newly, you just had to have it 2 weeks or more prior to meeting them. And that was, again, just because of, I believe it's pertussis. I don't remember exactly what all is in it, but especially for NICU babies, and then they were born in the fall, and that's like high RSV season and stuff like that. It was just important for us to have like all our bases covered in that just to be safe.
The next S was shoes, which stands for or represents taking them off when you come inside, which is kind of a practice we weren't so good at in general on our own. And we started, we were doing this as well. So we started taking them off at the door, requesting that people who came over took them off at the door. Easier to keep the floor clean, especially as the kids like started crawling. I know this is really early we're talking about, but like your floors need to be clean all the time. But it's even more important, in my opinion, when the babies are crawling around, especially if you don't have like a mat or something down, you know. So it just helps to keep whatever's outside from coming inside as best as you can.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't want to if you would like to implement something like that and you're not sure if you have like elderly here coming or it's hard to take their shoes off, or you want to present people an option, like you can buy like the little shoe covers and have those. It's a great option to kind of like
those things are so cool. I see videos of those all the time where like people have cool shoes and they're like somebody has those at the beginning of their house right when you come inside and you just step in and your shoes covered and shoes protected and the floor's protected.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So cool.
What you're sounding like
shoe covers? You haven't seen those?
It sounds like you're talking about something magical. I'm just talking like the surgical covers that like have a...
Yeah, there are like, that's what I'm talking about too, but there are like, they look like big Kleenex boxes that have those in them.
Yeah.
And you can just, you step your shoe in and when you lift your foot out, it has it on there. So it's the same thing. There's just like an applicator.
Got it. It's just like high tech.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But people keep those like right at the front of their house. And I guess we haven't talked about this before. I would love to have these. You come in, step on it. You don't have to worry about untying your shoes or whatever else. It's great. Yeah.
So the next one was scents. And so this is like, please don't, put on really heavily scented. Like we are pretty much a scent-free house as far as like most synthetic fragrances. I've been implementing this for a while now. It just gave me headaches. There's a bunch of research on it. You can figure that out and do the research yourself. It can be endocrine disruptors, bad for hormones. Anyway, pretty much a scentless house. We do have some like essential oil fragrances and that type of thing, but those don't give headaches. And we just request that nobody like put on their perfume, like hairspray is scented and really heavily scented lotions. And, this might also be if you have a smoker in your family that you ask that they like not smoke before coming in, and or like have them change clothes, like in maybe like a big overshort you have at your house just so like the baby is not breathing in that secondhand smoke.
Yeah, and I think it's probably good to stop here. Like, this is not, again, thinking back to our what not to say to my kids or my family. Like, this is not a set of requirements to make you worthy of seeing a baby. It's more just like, hey, here are things that we would like ourselves and everybody to do so we can attempt to control the environment a little bit when they're so vulnerable and so young. So some of these have carried on, even though we've got less of a stringency and less of an importance on some of them, now that the kids are a little older and have more developed immune systems. But like when they're that young, something as simple as like cigar smoke on your jacket or a weird scent in a perfume like could not only set them off, but it could be like something they're not okay to be exposed to yet. They could be allergic to it. Could get like, this is small, but like it could give them headaches, and then all of a sudden they're up all night, and that could affect the parents. So like these little tiny things that feel like control, they do have a purpose. It's not just, for us to be jerks and tell people they have to stay out if they're not doing it.
Even now I wish like there was, I remember like growing up in church, there was like a small section in the back, like upper balcony, that was like a no scent section even back then, because like it wasn't as big of a thing back then, but like I appreciate that so much, just because like even now if someone like gets in the car, like someone got in the car and they were wearing a really heavy cologne and it stuck on the seatbelt, and like I smelled it for weeks just when I put on my seatbelt, and I was like, this is giving me a headache right now. Or like even just coming in our house now, it does give me a headache, and then that affects how I feel, which does affect parenting. But we don't have a no sense policy right now. It was just, again, like kind of Nick covered that it was just very much so like when they were
and we'll get into
tiny.
like how to talk to people a little bit, or at least how we have when they don't understand or don't agree with certain boundaries. Like I think the reason I'm giving us this context is this helps to do that, right? Like,
and again, like this was something we presented to everybody. It wasn't just like for like a small section just to prevent against like one person or something. No, this was like the same across the board, and we were taking part in that as well.
Yeah. The next one is smooches.
AKA kisses.
AKA kisses.
It just went with the S theme.
Yeah, which is good. 5 S's is easy to remember. We had our babies around the time when a lot of stuff was going around, right? So like, this is a good practice in general, but we were extra sensitive to it because of how many people were getting sick. And I think it doesn't just encompass kisses. It's more like face contact and like general
Mouth
contact
contact,
around mouths. Yeah. So like, we don't want to limit, our family's ability to kiss their grandkids in general, of course, and they can now, but like when they're early, super young kids, it was important to us that we're not kissing them. We're not like touching their nose or their mouth and stuff, like doing the little, none of that. That kind of all encompasses smooches.
Well, and even like, I wasn't even really like, I would kiss like maybe the top of their head, but I wasn't kissing their face. So like, again, we were participating in these rules and boundaries that we set. And, like Nick said, like a lot of stuff was going around. It's, RSV season and all that. And you could have a cold and then come over and it'd be okay for you, and then it turned to RSV for them. We just didn't allow like kissing on the face. And also, again, if they would have been NICU babies, like it's even more strict for NICU, even when they come home, just because they have a lessened immune system, and you have to protect them more.
Yeah.
I actually just thought of another S, so maybe it should be the 6 S's on that point, is sickness. Like we asked people, like, if you don't feel good, you can't hold them right now, and you can't,
I mean, that is a boundary
over.
We had. We just didn't include it in your acronym.
Now it's a 6 S's, and I will update my notes.
Yeah, and just to spend a second on that, if somebody has asked you to come over, or you said you're going to come over to meet their baby, hang with their baby, whatever, even if you're going to babysit, like, do not feel any weirdness or anxiety around telling them that you don't feel good. Like, our nanny is so good at this. Like, if you're sniffly at all, you feel fine, you would be comfortable coming over. Mentioning it to the parents and letting them decide is the way that I think you should approach it, right? So, like, our nanny has a sore throat. This happened a bunch, right? So, like, she'll text us and be like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit of these symptoms. I'm completely still comfortable. I think I'm okay. You know, nothing serious, like, wanted to let you guys know. And that way we as the parents have the opportunity to decide, is this okay as in a safe environment for our kid? Is it not? So the sickness is not just like, the boundary is if you don't feel good, don't go. But what I am saying is, if you think you're not sure and you might be feeling bad or whatever, and there's some borderline, don't accept the burden of making that decision. Just give it up to the parents. And honestly, most parents are going to be so happy that you're being transparent about that. Yeah. So tell me if that made sense. But
100%.
Yeah, being transparent is important.
Yeah, I mean, it might be sad for a minute, and your trip or whatever might be ruined, but it's more important to keep you. These are to keep everyone safe. That's what
Exactly.
they are.
Yeah.
They're not personal.
And who would not give up a tiny family trip or the date night you had planned or whatever else, like, to keep your kids safe
In the long run.
Yeah. And then the person who reached out to you has some time to recover as well. Like, it's best on all parties, even though it's a little bit inconvenient.
Yeah. And then the last one, just to fit with the S's, I called it sexy pics. I didn't want naked photos. One, taken on the phone because you don't know who can get a hold of those. But two, I didn't want them posted online. And even now, I don't allow Olive's chest to be shown.
Yeah. Even though she's not, like, developed.
Right. I just don't allow that online whatsoever. We do have pictures of that, but it's just like, I didn't want...
I mean, we do, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, just you and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to get too
No.
nitpicky, but, like, you're saying we as in we have them, but you're also saying people shouldn't be taking them, and we're asking people not to hold them on their phone that aren't us.
It was more so that, like, yeah, they can take the photo, but do not post it anywhere if we're talking about, like, top.
Right.
But as far as fully naked... No, we're not taking fully naked photos, and we are especially not posting them online. Like, I've seen that where even this could be heated, but even like the cute like baby photos, like where they're all posed and then they're like naked and there's their little booty.
Yeah.
I just don't want that online. You know, that I don't have a problem with them, but like, we didn't take photos like that. We did take like, newborn photos. We didn't take photos like that, and I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah. And we don't have those, I would call them diaper photos, right? Like the diaper area photos. We don't have those on our phones at all. The only few that we have were taken for medical purposes to send to our pediatrician,
and even that felt weird,
and deleted. Yeah. So, like, yeah, that was a boundary for us.
Yeah. So those are our 6 S's now, not the 5 S's. And then the other thing that also just I didn't have on this, but I guess I could. Maybe it's the 7 S's. I'm making this up as we go. But 7 S's, and it's called it SUDS because we did require people to wash their hands when they came in.
Yeah.
SUDS. I like it. So the 7 S's.
Yeah. SUDS is good.
There you go.
7 S's.
We didn't like print it out or anything, but we did again like text it out and say like what our wishes were. The next kind of like boundary to talk about is basically making a child do something that they don't want to do. I'm not talking about cleaning their room. I'm saying like, oh, so-and-so, Uncle Johnny wants you to hug them. You need to hug them, and like guilting them into doing that or doing something that they don't want to do. Even like, you know, it's a cool option that people give these days. It's like, oh, you can give a high five, a hug. I don't know. There's options that you can give, but it's also okay to not do any of those. And it's really important as we teach our children like consent and like, you know, making them have physical touch with somebody that they don't want to isn't great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had them at a restaurant yesterday for an event, right? And like they were going around giving high fives and fist bumps and stuff to our friends, and a lot of these people already knew them, but they weren't comfortable doing it with every single person, and that's fine. And I was thinking about, without knowing we were doing this podcast episode today, I was thinking about that yesterday because something that I try and do, I'm assuming you're the same here, and tell me if you're not. Something I try and do is like, I provide that opportunity. Like, I'm like, hey, here's whoever, you know, like, do you want to give a high five? Do you want to give a fist bump? And that person will like present whatever they're doing. And sometimes Cypress or Olive is like, no. And no is a brand new kind of word for us right now. So Cypress loves to say no, but I'm honoring whatever he says, right? So if he says no or doesn't do it, I don't say something. I'm trying to not say something like, oh, he's not happy at the moment, or like, oh, he's having a tough day or whatever. Like, I'm not assigning anything negative intentionally to his decision to not give somebody a high five, because there's nothing weird about that. And I'm also trying to say something like, oh, maybe next time or whatever. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think I usually respond like, oh, we didn't want to do it today. That's okay. And honestly, 99% of the time, like our friends, the one that happened, they're like, no big deal.
Yeah, we haven't had a single person that's been pissed off about that.
Right. Like they get it. And so, it is affirming their decision in that. And actually, there's like a little like mom's book club that I go to here in LA. And we were just talking about boundaries this last book, which was the Dr. Becky Goodinside book. And one of the moms was like, yeah, my daughter, she's like, I think around 3. I tell her like, yeah, you don't have to say hi and you don't have to like high five or whatever, but we will be kind. Like you don't need to like make a mean face or something like that, which I really love that, because again, you don't have to do what you don't feel comfortable. We're not going to be like mean about it. Yeah. Yeah. Unless there's obviously it wasn't about a time where it was like there was like a predator, a problem. This is just like an everyday, like, quote, normal.
Well, but it does influence their behavior if they are presented with something like that in the future. So I know what you're saying. You're correct. Yeah. But it's like, it's not completely decoupled. It's important to set those boundaries with friends and family so that they have the same behavior, hopefully.
This was just about saying hi.
Yeah. I got
But even that, like, you know, like we've had them like say hi, and again we're like, you don't have to say hi. Like I'm just thinking like you would have them, or sorry, as you would say it, they waved at people when they were really small.
Yes.
And you know, like that was just like fun. We weren't like forcing them to do anything if they didn't want to do it. So I'm just thinking back, like again, reaffirming like their decision and not basically grooming them to just do whatever.
Yeah, and the line to be nice is really good too, because the point is not to like be selfish or promote like, you know, being angry at somebody who's asking for the hug or the high five or whatever. The point is just like be comfortable with communicating what you want, and we're going to try and create an environment where it's okay to communicate and do what you want.
Yeah. We're not going to get into this because I think it's, again, like we could definitely have another boundary conversation, maybe even as adults. But there's a video I found on TikTok. I do have it. I saved it and I'll put it in the show notes. But it was about boundaries. She was talking to her daughter and she was saying, I want to tell you what I wish someone would have told me when I was younger, because this child, they usually told like, oh, it was a good kid because they were meaning that they had a compliant behavior and were easy to get along with because they were like sweet. But again, people take advantage of that. And she was just basically saying like, I want you to know, like, you can say no. It's not, even when you're uncomfortable, and like went through the whole like scenario of like, what can you say? Who can you get? That type of thing. You don't have to be uncomfortable and you can voice that. You don't have to please people, which I really like. Just also like, I think as a millennial, we were both millennials, I found it hard to have boundaries in the workplace specifically. And like saying no, and I felt like I had to do something to the point where it was like detrimental to like my mental health or like my free time, or like I wasn't being paid, you know, for that type of work. And I just wish I would have known that earlier as well.
Yeah, that it's okay to say no, and it's not a mean thing to say no.
Right.
Yeah, like there's obviously a mean way you can deliver 100%. It, just like any word in any sentence, but like inherently saying no, you know, is not a rude thing.
And I think that's why boundaries are so hard, because it can feel personal.
Well, it feels like you're letting the requester down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it can feel personal and it can feel hard. And so again, that's just why we're talking about it with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that we still have spring for another month, but it is warming up here in Los Angeles, and we don't have central AC here. And so before we started recording this, I like went into the bathroom and I applied more deodorant, because I was like, you know, talking might get a little like heated.
You didn't want to distract me via my senses.
Yeah, so I just applied more deodorant, and my favorite deodorant and Nick's favorite deodorant is Primarily Pure. I like the citrus mint. Oh my gosh, vanilla citrus. I will link the correct one for you, but it's like a citrusy smell. And then Nick's favorite is charcoal, and it is just fantastic. Our favorite, non-toxic, deodorant, and we have a discount code for you if you want to try it. It is, you want to tell them what it is?
BGMAD.
Yeah, BGMAD, and it gets you 10% off your purchase, and you can use it anytime you place an order with Primarily Pure, not just the first time. So if you're looking to try a good non-toxic deodorant, this is the one. They also have other things that we like the baby balm. Nick likes their beard care products. Yeah, they've got a great line.
Yeah, they're great. They've also got little travel sizes of
Yes.
what they've got. So like in my adopt kit, I've got, the tiny deodorant of the same.
The tiny everything spray.
Yeah.
They're all good.
For my skin. Yeah, it's great.
You can just check them out and use our discount while you're at it.
BGMAD.
So the next little ditty I have written down is just like on family boundaries. We really haven't had a ton of, like, within our family unit, we haven't had a ton of conversations about this yet. I feel like we will. We're just not at that point yet, just because they're not doing a ton of stuff with other people. But I wanted to talk about some things like we grew up with. So for example, like I was allowed to have my cell phone in my room. I don't think you were. But I also wasn't allowed to have a TV in my room.
Are you talking about any time at all? Or
no,
just
like at night. Sorry, at night.
Yeah, I was allowed to have my cell phone during the day when I had one, which was pretty late when I was a kid. I think it was 13 or 14 before I got my first cell phone, maybe 14 or 15.
I was like 7th grade. So
yeah, so I think you got it slightly before me. But regardless, I was never allowed to plug it into my room. This was even before like text messaging and stuff where that would have really mattered. But
this is just a funny thing. My phone was a Sprint. I forgot what it was. It was a flip phone. And I had
the color one?
I did have the pink one later. This was silver.
I had the blue one of that probably same model.
I had the green. No, that was anyway. It was a flip phone, silver, and I had, a little charm on the antenna. I had text message, but I had to connect to the internet to do it.
Oh, that's funny.
And it looked like an email, like, inbox.
I remember those.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I did not, I was allowed to use it, which was limited use because it wasn't like a smartphone is today. I was allowed to use it, but I was never allowed to have it past. Actually, I think we had to have them plugged in a certain amount of time. Mom, keep me honest, a certain amount of time before bedtime. So it wasn't like, I think it was an hour or a half hour or something before everybody, including mom and dad, plugged their cell phones in downstairs in the kitchen, and they would do it with us. And then there was wind down time prior to brushing your teeth and getting ready for bed and everything. So like really having them upstairs was weird, even though that wasn't the boundary, but it was like the standard was set and the boundary was set, like cell phones are not for nighttime use.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, what I was trying, I didn't ever like use this feature, but like that's what I had, the internet on my phone in 7th grade, and I had it in my room.
Yeah.
At night by myself.
Yeah.
But if anything, I was just like late night texting. I didn't do anything else. But I like that, and I like parents doing it as well. I think even now I struggle like getting distracted when I'm with Cypress and Olive. I think it's different maybe if you have, even if you just have one child, it could be a struggle to focus sometimes, but Cypress and Olive often play with each other, and so like they don't necessarily need me paying attention all the time, and like I struggle with being distracted by my phone to the point where I try to leave it on the changing pad or like out of the room, and I have my watch, so I am connected in that sense if something was wrong. But I mean, I like the boundary of that.
And like I think the question for me is, what are we gonna set as our boundary for them? And you mentioned we haven't talked about this. Like I do like what my parents did for us, but I think technology is a lot more powerful now, and there's a lot more that you can do as compared to when those boundaries were in place when I was a kid. So like, I don't know when we want them to have phones. Because on one end it's super safe for them to have a phone, and it like allows us to know where they are and provide them help as quick as possible and have information if they get into a car accident or something. Like those are all great things, but it also opens up their access theoretically to a lot of other things that maybe we wouldn't want them to have access to on the internet yet. So I don't know what I do like the like there's no need for you to have that device around bedtime.
Yeah. It's even good for like the blue light, Yeah.
And you mentioned TV. I had a TV in my room, I think middle school and on. It was like the little all-in-one VHS tiny TV, and I don't know how I didn't get hurt. This is just a different point. I had a large, like one of those net cube tower things that you could build that turned into shelves. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
So they were super popular in like the early 2000s. I had them like stacked like 8 cubes high and like 10 cubes wide. and they should not have held as much weight as I put on them. I had the TV, this like, it was probably a 60, 70 pound TV. Like, you know, the original like CRT
smaller,
tube with the
yeah.
no, it was big. It was a
Got it.
big cube. That thing was in the top right corner with no top on the cube, and like it would wobble. I don't know how it didn't fall and hurt me. Like, and it was, I built it. Like, yeah. Anyway, I had a TV. The boundary we had was, it was supposed to be off at bedtime. I don't remember if it was just before or like at bedtime, but the boundary was that I shouldn't be watching it after bedtime as the person with a TV in my room. I don't think my sisters really had TVs in their room as kids. I don't think that was intentional. I'm just thinking about the information. Like there was one, I was the one that watched the most TV and played video games and stuff. So I had like Super Nintendo in my room. And,
Got it.
But I didn't watch TV at night. That was the boundary. But thinking forward, I don't know that I am against a TV in the kids' bedrooms. This is me talking on the fly. We haven't talked about this. I'm not really against it. I'm also not necessarily like for the boundary of it has to be off at bedtime. Like I understand why that would happen, but like my understanding is that boundary came from thinking that too much TV time was rotting your brain, you know? And like that has kind of been debunked, even if you're not watching only educational programming. Like even if it's just cartoons, it's not, you know, it has not been found to hurt you. So, and there's also this thing of, I would like my kids to be able to know, like instead of saying, hey, it's 8 o'clock, the TV needs to be off. I would more rather want to be like, hey, Cypress, hey, Olive, remember, you got to get up early in the morning. Like, it's going to be tough to wake up if you keep watching TV. So I would like to encourage them to understand the impact of their decision of keep watching TV or keep using their game system or whatever, and not necessarily punish them, but like have them feel that pain a little bit, like waking up with less sleep than they need and the next morning being a little bit tough. Like it would be nice for them to learn that early on. If I make this decision to stop watching TV when I need to go to sleep, then I feel better and refreshed in the morning kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the why. I love knowing why personally. I don't know if like a young child can understand that or understand the impact. Also, like I got by on way less sleep than I did now. I am for like a turn off of TV situation just because of the blue light. It does impact sleep health and all of that. We had, growing up, the TV boundaries we had, I think we could watch 30 minutes during the week, maybe, and usually it was like, maybe it was an hour, I don't know. I like to watch, I think, Sabrina the Teenage Witch came on at like 4:30, but then, you know, we watched PBS like Arthur. Cyber Chase was later, which I watched because of my sister. I do like that. I think...
I'm not against it. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I just think it was hard, like even looking back, I'm like, that was a dumb decision I made. You know, I don't know if their brains can like comprehend that. Yeah, but we can definitely.
Well, and what I am thinking about is when I got a TV, which was like 11 or 12.
Yeah, well,
so like you can comprehend. You're starting to understand the impacts of your decisions there. So I think the age makes a difference when we're having this discussion.
I mean, most of my best friends, like I think only one of them had it in her room, and it was like the teeny tiny one, and it was like we would have Nick at Night on.
Yeah.
We also didn't have cable growing up until I was in high school, like around the time High School Musical came out.
Yeah.
I think we were allowed more on the weekends to watch.
I don't think I had cable in that. We had cable as a home. In my TV, I did not have an antenna or cable. It was VHSs, like...
That's also different.
I had a DVD player, but I had DVDs in my room when that came out, which I think was after the TV. I had like Super Nintendo, like I said, the other gaming systems that plugged into that TV. So like my parents' ability, I don't know if control's the right word. My parents knew what I was doing when I was using that TV.
Yeah, it's definitely different where now like smart TVs, you have access to a lot more. And like, that brings us into iPads and things like, and computers. I never had a computer until I graduated high school and went to college.
Yeah.
And if I did use the computer, it was in a public space.
Yeah, we're going to have to address this in a different episode. Computer boundaries are going to be very difficult for us. They are currently required within a lot of public school systems for access to turn in things like homework and papers.
Yeah.
So like...
Well, now they don't even use like textbooks. You have stuff on the computer from what I hear.
Yeah. Some places are fully paperless. Yeah. Yeah, so like obviously a decision to blanket not
Well, and they give Chromebooks and things like that.
Yeah, so a decision to like blanket not have your kid use a computer until X age like may not really be possible. So I think that conversation when we have it is going to be more around access and ability to use specific things as opposed to whether a computer is something you get or not, because I think they're going to have one.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, back when AOL first came out
Yeah.
and the internet as a public access first came out, like there were no real good controls against what your kid can see.
Yeah.
So like it was as scary giving them a computer with internet access as it would be today giving them something with absolutely no boundaries. Yeah.
Which, just a side note, just
like AOL chat rooms were a terrible place.
Right. I was going to say, just for funsies, you want to tell everybody what your screen name was? I'll share mine too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, nobody take it because it's the best. B Ballin' Nick 76. B Ballin' Nick. I was tall early, so that made me think, of course I'm going to be a professional basketball player. And I was fine with basketball, but I wasn't in love with it. I just played it a lot, so I was a basketball fan, and I really liked Allen Iverson, who played for the 76ers, the Philadelphia 76ers. So B Ballin' Nick 76 was my screen name.
Mine, not that you have anything to be embarrassed about, but like mine, I was pretty, not ahead of my time, but it was Lauren Chick, but I spelled it with just a C. So I was like, I'm chic and I'm a chick. So Lauren Chick.
So many layers.
Lauren Chic 9, and because 9 was my favorite number.
Is 9 still your favorite number?
I don't want to give too much personal information.
Oh my gosh, that's personal information.
Well, no,
okay.
just put it on the internet of like what my favorite things are, because those can be like password questions.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Yeah. You've communicated a boundary. I can respect it.
We can talk about it off air. Sorry, I did have one other thing. It's just like, I don't think it's healthy to fall asleep with the TV on, not just like the blue light, but like some people, I know people who like did that and then they like have to have it on and they can't fall asleep otherwise, which I think is kind of crippling.
I disagree with that. I put it in the same box as like some people like to fall asleep with noisemakers, like
then
the waves and stuff. Huh?
Use a noisemaker.
Use a noisemaker?
Then use that instead of the TV.
No, I get. What I'm saying is, it's basically in my head, it's the same thing, and I've also seen. I need to check this, so no, I'm not a scientist. I have seen studies talking about how TV is not harmful to you that talk about falling asleep with the TV on, because it was perceived as a really bad thing, and based on my current knowledge, it's not perceived as a bad thing anymore. We should look this up and get back to people, because I don't know for sure. Well, the only thing... All I'm saying is that I disagree with what you're saying, but I don't have great reasons, so I can look into it.
I will say that I've mentioned it before, but the Expecting Better book by Professor Emily Oster, she talks about the TV studies with children, or screen time specifically, and they're just not conclusive. Like, obviously, other things are better, and you want an active child, but the studies that were done were not done in a way that they were completely truthful, because it didn't have like, is the family reading to the kids too? Like, is it just being used as a babysitter? Like, there wasn't a lot of equal parts or controls, rather.
Sure.
So it just wasn't conclusive. So I agree with you that it's not as bad as I think it is, but I think what it can lead to, like being sedentary and like mindless eating and things like that, can lead to poor behaviors.
So yeah, and this gets into statistics. Inconclusive results can also communicate things that you can take home and understand. So like, for example, even though those results were inconclusive, they're also not showing you that there's a direct negative impact of screen time in general to your kid.
That's what the point I was trying to make.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were just talking about positive.
No, I'm saying that she said, like, yes, these studies exist, but I wouldn't take it to heart, and so screen time isn't going to be... Yeah. Which
is, so we're saying the same thing. But that's also what I was saying near the beginning when we were talking about TVs and rooms. Like, that flies in the face of the expectations of screen time when TVs were coming out, like, and cable and internet and stuff was coming out, because the parents' perception back then was like playing outside was better inherently than watching an educational program, because TV was rotting your mind. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, that needs to be teased out.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm going to say one more thing, and you can say another thing too, because this is not the whole point of the podcast. Yeah. We need to move on. But there are studies that have come out about video games, specifically violent ones, and how that affects, especially like I just finished a book. I've done like several parenting ones where I get them mixed up. I think this was it was Decoding Boys. I'll link both of them in there, but I believe it was Decoding Boys. And they were talking about specifically like video games and specifically violent ones. When her son hit the 45-minute mark, he got more aggressive and like poor behavior. Whereas like if he cut it off at like 30 minutes or maybe even just like the 40-minute mark, it was better.
Interesting.
And she also discussed, games like Fortnite that have come out where, they're, what's it called? Single player shooter or whatever. Fortnite was different because it's perceived as like a really fun game, which it is. Like Nick does play Fortnite, but like all the dancing and the confetti and stuff, it's not like Call of Duty.
Yeah. So to be more specific, there's confetti and like sparkles and like colors and dances and stuff in Fortnite. So you're using, guns, for lack of a better term, like you're shooting other players, but like it's not, there's no gore, So compared to a military game, no offense to them, it's not the same as like going in and clearing out a house of terrorists. Like it's like all teams of buddies that are, it's like laser tag more than it is like a war game.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have anything else you want to say on that one?
I saw it's
cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Just making sure because I don't want to like rush us, but I want to talk about other things. The other thing on this that I wrote down as far as like family boundaries are sleepovers, and like I had sleepovers as a kid, like, and there were a couple people's houses who I was allowed to have sleepovers at. But then I also remember, I guess in elementary school, maybe there was a middle school one too, where it was a birthday party that then turned into a sleepover, and I could go to the party, but I was not allowed to spend the night. And at the time, I don't remember being like overtly like angry about it. I think I was maybe a little bit sad, but I'm like, looking back, like I'm glad I wasn't allowed to, and like I respect my parents' decision and understand. Just because a lot of things can go wrong, whether it be with other kids or parents and things like that.
Yeah, I have not fully formed my thoughts and preferences about this subject. What we did when I was a kid is, I think it was a baseline expectation of my parents that they knew the parents whose house I was going to. Also, that they knew the parent whose kid wanted to stay with us. So it was both ways. Like I couldn't just have a random person come and sleep over. They had the same standard of talking to their family as if I was going over there. I think it was like the preference was that they knew and had met in person the parents or the parent. But I think in some cases, like a conversation on the phone with the other parents, even if they hadn't met them, was okay. But I think maybe that was the boundary, and the preference was, I know this other family.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sleepovers were not. I don't know if there was a time when we were like allowed to based on our age or not, but like we had them. I slept at buddies' houses, they slept at mine. But it was. My parents knew where I was going and who I was going to be with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a different world. We'll have to discuss that later when the time comes.
Yeah.
So the next question I had, and I think I already know the answer, but as far as like, do you think that we'll have or implement different boundaries for Cypress and Olive? Will there be the same? Meaning like, I grew up in a girl-girl household. You grew up in a girl-boy household. We have a girl-boy household, and
you're talking about siblings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And how, different expectation or different boundaries per kid. Like, do you think that we'll have the same or?
I think it's hard for me to answer that question without thinking of the specifics.
Yeah.
I want them both to be equally prepared to be out in the world and to do the things they want to do. I would like to think I want their boundaries to be equal and the same. I think where it's gray for me is that I trust my kids. I don't trust the people they come in contact with in general, right? And I don't mean to say that I distrust everybody. It's with respect to keeping my kids safe, I don't trust strangers yet, right? So like where I could see one child having different boundaries than the other is with respect to keeping them safe around certain strangers. For example, currently, I think it's a less safe world if you're a female than it is if you're a male.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it should be that way, shouldn't be that way. I'm not having that conversation. I'm saying I could see us having a stronger or stricter boundary to keep Olive safe than we would for Cypress in certain situations to help and protect them, not because guys should be able to do more than girls, or girls should be able to do more than guys as the kid. Does that make sense?
It does, but I'm having trouble thinking of a specific scenario because like I'm like, okay, curfews, I feel like those are going to be the same.
Sure. Yeah.
And I feel like boys can have similar, as far as like hard in the world, that's a different topic, but as far as like protection, I feel like boys can have a similar issue to girls and they're not discussed as much. And so I don't know that you have
What
a
do you
specificity.
mean?
I mean that like keeping olives safe in the world, there are similar things that also impact boys that are less talked about. So I don't know that you have a specific example, which you don't have to.
Yeah, you're right. What I'm thinking of is like, especially as they're maturing as kids, as boys and girls,
Yeah.
one of them is able to defend themselves better than the other, or probably will be, right? So where the baseline is, I would like their boundaries and expectations to be equal. Yes. Where I could consider them not being is in that situation, right?
Okay.
If we're putting them alone in situations where they may need to protect themselves, obviously we wouldn't do that on purpose, but like that's the only time where I'm thinking it might be unequal.
Yeah. I think, and again, like you don't have a specific thing. So
I also don't know that I would actually do that. I'm just saying if there was a place
it's all
where it would be
hypothetical.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, even now, like one of them is bigger than the other one, and that comes to being able to like, defend yourself usually better.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Ugh. I don't even want to think about that.
I mean, you brought it up, but
I know.
it is a very difficult subject, and I think like there's two categories in my mind. It's like should they have separate boundaries? Absolutely not. Right. So that's probably a good thing to call out. That's what I was trying to communicate. Like when we think about the outside world and how the outside world is going to act around them and protect them, right? Or put them in dangerous situations, that's where I could see things being kind of different. But like, do I think that because Cypress is a boy and Olive is a girl, they should have different curfews, or one should be able to use a cell phone in their room and one shouldn't? No.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Those blurred lines and gray areas would be with respect to the outside environment and the outside world, not with respect to what we want them to be allowed to do.
Yeah. Moving on.
I think we need to. I think your brain's doing weird things to you.
Yeah. So this is kind of just like more of a statement and a tip, and something that we try to implement is like when, as far as like boundaries with children, it's kind of like popularized, to ask them questions like, do you want blueberry yogurt or strawberry yogurt type of thing, and like asking permission, kind of like teaching that consent. But there's an area where like we don't do that, and that's in an area where it's something we have to do. So it's not like, would you like to brush your teeth? It's like we brush our teeth in the morning, at night, or like, can I change your diaper? No, you're going to end up changing the diaper anyway. So let's say I am going to change your diaper. And because if you, for example, do that, it could be teaching them like, even though they say no, that it doesn't matter and I'm going to change your diaper anyway. And it can be kind of what we were talking about, like not grooming per se, but saying that what they say doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a proper use of the word grooming, right? Like you are not trying to, but you're, not telling them, hey, this is going to happen, and providing them with the choice, and then not honoring their choice is unintentionally grooming them.
Yeah, and I think I first saw this, I don't have the video link, but I think it was a doctor, like a pediatrician, talking about, maybe it was like checking private areas or like that. It's not saying, can I do this? It's like, I'm going to do this, and it's a safe environment, the parents there, and like it's needed for health reasons. That specifically is just tough, just because again, you don't want to ask their permission and then say no, because you're literally grooming. We don't need to go into it anymore.
And I think grooming makes sense. I understand what you're saying. And we're not talking about us doing that intentionally. That's why it's okay to use the word. Yeah. But the reason we don't want to request and not honor their answer is because we don't want to groom. Yeah. That's okay to say. And groom them for what may happen to them in the outside world, right? I also think it's important, we haven't talked about this, it's important to call out like, those direct statements are probably reserved for some of the most trusted in the kids' lives. So like the parents, absolutely okay. Parents present and doctor, probably also okay, right? Yeah. But we also don't want to unintentionally groom or teach them that just because somebody is direct, you don't have the opportunity to say no, right? So I kind of want to protect that as well. So like, if some random stranger says, hey, you're coming with me, I want them to be comfortable saying, oh no, I'm 100%. Not comfortable with that. I don't know you. Right. So I agree with you, but I think it's like, that isn't something I would tell our friends to do. I would tell, you know, like that's a close-knit circle thing.
Yeah. And that goes back to the video I mentioned earlier that I do have the link for about the lady telling her daughter, like, what do you do in an uncomfortable situation?
And reinforcing.
And practicing saying that, because it's even like when things happen to us out in the world, like it can be stunning in the sense that you like don't know what to do and you haven't like practiced saying certain things. And on that note, there's a song that we heard that actually first heard on TikTok, but it's by the Hopscotch Company, and it's the Boundary song, and I'll put it in their YouTube video in the show notes. But it's like, please stop, I don't like that, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I need more space. And then I don't know all the words, but it's like, it's nothing
pitch perfect over there.
It's nothing personal, it's a boundary. It's a boundary.
So taking away the negative stigma from saying what you want or what you don't want to happen.
Well, yeah, but it's also like teaching them to be comfortable with that, because songs they can remember, and like even both of us remember like song lyrics, and just like they can call upon that in a time of need, which is love a good song. Yeah. Another book or another resource on that kind of topic is My Body Is Mine, and I can put that in the show notes as well. And then something I haven't started yet, but I purchased it, and then I'm doing it in my little mom book club, is the Birds and the Bees course. Again, that can be a whole nother topic. Yikes, but I'll put the link in the show notes if you're interested. I've been reading books and stuff on this topic just to prepare myself, because it's like the earlier the better, because you want the conversation to come from you. But again, that is not what this episode is on, but it definitely applies to it. We aren't really touching on it in depth in this episode in like as far as like parenting boundaries with your kids, but they're going to learn, like we said, we're in a no phase right now. They're going to learn how to say no. And so there are some tips to like implementing boundaries with your children. And so the account Big Little Feelings, I have this video, I'll put it in the show notes, has recommended that, you know, you can say, instead of saying you can't do this, say you can do this or this. So it gives them an option, and it's a positive connotation of like, okay, we're not going to eat the sand, but you can put it in the bucket, or you can scoop it with your shovel. So it gives them an option and feels like they're somewhat still in control. I'm in the middle of reading a book about, I forgot what it's called, but about like parenting and how parenting has changed, and that to the way where kids are looking toward their peer group as their resource versus the parents. And it's because parents have tried to kind of be like friends, where like ideally you want to be your child's friend in the end, but like it's kind of hard to do that and implement boundaries. And so I think that's a good way to do it, where it's still hard to parent your kid and like do boundaries like that, but I feel like that's a good way to try, like, okay, you can do this or do this.
Yeah, and this may seem obvious, but to our earlier point, this is useful when a choice is available, right? So like this would not be you can either brush your teeth or you don't brush your teeth, right? Like in that scenario,
we brush our teeth.
Brushing our teeth at night, right? So we brush our teeth right now. Here, you know, maybe you can make it fun and have like, which toothbrush do you want? Where both options involve brushing your teeth. But yeah, a choice has to exist to provide those choices and inherently set boundaries against choices you're not describing.
Yeah, and we actually just took the twins to the dentist this past week, and that's one of the things they did was like, okay, do you want the purple toothbrush or the blue toothbrush?
And it worked really well.
Yeah, they got to decide. It was really good.
Shout out Toothbuds. Toothbuds has a few locations. I think they're here locally in LA. Don't they?
I don't think so.
I lied. The one we went to is the one we went to.
I think that there is
Go to Toothbuds.
I think there is another one that exists.
Google Maps says 4 of them exist. So
in LA specifically? Oh, I don't know. I know that the company name existed. I thought the other one I found wasn't here.
Sure. Maybe I miss.
We love Toothbuds, and then our dentist is Vicente Dental, and they're awesome. So we would recommend both of them. If you live in LA, go to the West LA area. So another thing that I thought about that I obviously don't have written down, and we haven't discussed this, but I think we have in the past, is that we found it was best if a conversation needs to be had about someone crossing a boundary or not honoring it, that it comes from the person whose friend or family member it is who crossed it, versus if my mom did something, like I would talk to her about that. you wouldn't talk to her about that.
Yeah.
And unless of course like I wasn't there, but I feel like it usually comes off better from the person who knows them the best.
Yeah. And not necessarily because it's a mean or a difficult conversation or anything. It's just like, we want to make sure people feel safe. Like you're going to feel the safest with the person you have the best relationship with. I think with like friends, a lot of times, especially with partners, like friends are typically equal friends with both of them sometimes, but with family members, I agree. And that doesn't mean you can't have that conversation, right? Like maybe you're on a trip and I'm with your parents or something, and there's something I see that I want to say something about. Like there's no reason not to, but when you have the option, I would agree with you.
Yeah, and I know we have like different generations listening to this. So, like if you're a grandparent or like older and you're trying to navigate what it's like to, you know, be around these new parents, like a great thing I like that like my parents did is they're like, or my dad did too, but my mom specifically asked was like, okay, what do you have, like a parenting book or anything we can read of like what you're wanting to do just so like we can honor it.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
If you can go into it with like a blank slate and even like ask the question, I feel like that makes them feel better being able to communicate things to you if they do have a request, because again it can be scary like on both sides, like it's not fun to deliver, it's not fun to get, but it's not malicious, it's just like for safety reasons.
I'm with you. So the other category I thought of, back on the note of you're not responsible for other people's reactions and boundaries, for those of you who are on the receiving end of a boundary discussion, right? Which I don't mean to make it this big thing. Like they're usually tiny, like, oh, we usually don't do that with them. Here's why.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for letting me know. Like that's how quick it can be, right? If you're on the receiving end, it is not because you have done something inherently wrong, because you have made the parent upset or pissed them off. And if you're a grandparent or the parent of the now new parent, we're not setting different boundaries for our kids because we think you screwed up.
Yeah.
Please do not receive us saying, hey, we're trying this or we're doing it this way, as trying to think that we're better than you, that we don't care about your wisdom or your advice, that we don't respect you, that we think you brought us up incorrectly or you did something wrong during our childhood. We're different parents than you were, and we're trying different things. Yeah, and we're also like, we as parents should not, this is my opinion, we should not have so much pride and hubris that we think what we're doing and the boundaries we're setting are inherently correct. Yeah. So let's not discuss them with people as though they are virtuous and the only true moral light or whatever, right? Let's communicate them, this is my preference again, as, hey, we're trying to do this because we think this, right? So there's no like, sure, I can be confident in that, but I'm not saying, hey, we're doing this because it's right. Yeah. We're doing this because it's the way it should be done. Right? Yeah. That's not a great way to communicate. It's not a great posture, I think, for us to have. That's not a good reason to have a boundary, I don't think. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is if you're on the receiving end, I kind of already stated this, be receptive to these conversations and try and help. I think it's also, again, easier if like our generation, we were talking to a friend last night and she had done something that her family member didn't like, and they addressed it afterward and they're like, please don't do this. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, thank you so much for telling me. And I think where like I struggle with, because again, like I struggle with this is like an issue, like I will think about it and think about how like I did something wrong, and it will just like keep me up at night. So like if you're there on the receiving end, and like, so I totally get if you struggle with this, but to have the posture of like, thank you for telling me, like, thank you for trusting me with that, like, that's so great. And like I was like, that's just awesome that was her response to that, because again, it's not malicious, it's really just how they want to raise their child, and you're taking part in that and they want you to be a part of it, and this is how they're doing it. And I would also say like use it as a teachable moment for yourself as well. Like if you're on the receiving end of something like this and you're a parent who's raising young kids, like they could be doing something that you think like, oh, wow, thanks for letting me know. Like, I wonder if we should start doing that, or I wonder how we should build that into what we're already doing. Like have that feed into your conversation with your partner and become part of what your set of boundaries are. Yeah. You know, don't receive it as like, oh, that's wrong or that's stupid or what, you know, like just listen. Yeah. And I think, you know, this isn't accounting for, I know like sometimes it can cause like a big like blow up between friends or family, like when those are requested to be implemented. Yeah. This doesn't necessarily help like calm that, but I did find another video on TikTok that I'll put in the show notes that she was like, we have some like family members who, this is not me talking, this is the
lady on the video of like, we have family members who have trouble with our boundaries. And one of the things that I have said to them that they can't really say anything in response to in a way like combative is like, we have taught our child that whenever you, not you, but whenever an adult doesn't respect their boundaries or listen to them, that they are not a safe and healthy adult. And so she's not, or they're not like listening to you or whatever, because this is a red alert to them that you're not a safe and healthy adult to be around.
Yeah, which is like a great way to help enforce, for lack of a better word, the boundary you're using. Like, you're not trying to say like, hey, you're screwing up. You're saying like, hey, we're teaching her this, and I don't want her to think of you this way unintentionally based on this action.
So you need to change your actions in order to be accepted by her or by the child. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just a quick little question, because I think we've chatted about a lot. Like I said, I don't really like I like direct communication. When it can be what I think is going to be a conflict, it just makes me nervous. And I know sometimes you might avoid a situation or may not just want to be included in a situation, but what would you say to someone who does have like a parent or a friend who they have a rough time implementing boundaries with, that it can be like combative? Do you have anything you would say to them of like how to help that?
So I'm trying to clarify your question. So you're saying, what would my advice be to somebody who's having trouble communicating and enforcing boundaries?
Maybe they're communicating it, but the listener doesn't want to, like, takes it personally or is combative with it.
So, yeah, good question. I will take this moment to say I am no professional or therapist, so please take what I'm saying as my understanding and my perception and my preference, and not expert opinion. I think that this is hard, keeping your posture of kindness.
Keeping your cool.
I mean, not to say you're wrong, but like, it goes further than that. It's not just like be cool and be okay. It's keep being kind, right? So like, if, in my opinion, you're going to have, like, the way I think of this scenario is these people are going to react poorly to what you're asking them to do. They may take offense to what you're saying. To your earlier point, like, assume they've been doing something wrong and we've been talking about it, or accusing them of something. Like, they are probably going to be angry in this situation, right? Or not be receiving it well. If you match that, you're not going to get anywhere, right? So I think like standing your ground in a kind way, in a descriptive way, and releasing, like, keep yourself away from words like, you did this so that, like, don't assign negative things from the child to actions to the person you're talking about. Get away from blame. Like, keep trying to educate as far as your parenting strategy. I would say stay away from comparisons, specifically comparisons like, if this is a parent or your in-laws, don't compare what you're doing to what they have done, because your goal here is not to say you're wrong, I'm right. It's to say, hey, I want you to understand so you can help us. Yeah. This is the way we're trying to do it.
I think what I meant by like keep your cool is like is be kind and like don't be triggered. Yeah. Work on yourself to where you can maybe keep your cool. If they're like escalating, you can keep it level.
And when I hear keep your cool, what I hear is just like have your, like, just continue to be chill. And I think that's helpful, but I like it. You kind of have to lean into the opposite, in my opinion. It's like, I'm not just not going to get angry. I'm going to be so kind and so descriptive and so encouraging that it's very clear to you that I am not angry at you about this or trying to accuse you of anything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying to me, it's that and. It's chill and.
I think when it's...
Keep your cool and.
Keep your cool to me doesn't mean chill.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
I like it. I know that it's still hard, but we believe in you. You can do it. It'll be better in the long run to like start with that and just...
There also is, like, this is a piece I didn't say yet. There is a point at which talking to somebody is not going to change their behavior, and your goal should not be to change their behavior, right? Your goal should be to protect the parenting style you want of your kid, protect your kid from certain things that these people may be doing to them unintentionally, whether they agree with you or not, right? So like there may be a point where you need to set actual boundaries specific to that person to protect your children from whatever you don't want them to be around.
Those are even harder.
Yeah, and I'm not claiming to have good advice on how to deal with that. I'm just saying, like, I'm encouraging us to keep having those conversations, but not infinitely. Like there is probably a point with certain people where they're just not willing to agree with you or honor what you'd like to do. And that becomes a different conversation of like, what am I comfortable having around my children, which is very difficult.
Yep. but you can do it. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please give us a rating, a review, a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Keep up with us at boygirlmom.com and
BGMAD.
and on our Instagram at boygirlmomdot.com.
Thank you for being here.
Yep. Thanks for growing with us.
Boy, girl, mom died. Gotta wash those butts together. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.